There's something worse than loving the wrong person. It's loving the right person at the wrong time. Caleb Hayes, a 32-year-old single father, spent his entire life learning to be invisible, until Lila Grant walked into his office and saw him in a way no one ever had. But she wasn't free, and he wasn't brave, at least not at first. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let's begin. Caleb Hayes had perfected the art of being overlooked. At 32, he moved through the world like background static, present but easy to tune out. He wore neutral colors, kept his voice even, made no sudden movements. His coworkers at DataCore Solutions knew his name only because it appeared on ticket assignments. His neighbors nodded politely when they saw him but couldn't recall a single conversation. Even his daughter's preschool teacher sometimes confused him with another parent. That was exactly how he wanted it. He'd learned early that attention was dangerous. Attention meant questions. Questions meant exposure. And exposure meant the careful structure he'd built around his life could crack open, spilling out all the messy, complicated truths he'd worked so hard to contain. So he stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed safe. Most days, it worked. The server room at DataCore hummed with the white noise of cooling fans and blinking diagnostic lights. Caleb sat cross-legged on the floor, a tangle of Ethernet cables spread around him like intestines. His hands moved with the mechanical precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Strip, crimp, test, repeat. Hey, you're the tech guy, right? He didn't look up. New voices in the server room usually meant someone from management had gotten lost looking for the bathroom. Network technician, he said. If you need IT support, you can submit a ticket through the portal. But I don't need support. I need to know if you can run a dedicated line to the new office upstairs. Caleb's hands paused. The voice was female, younger than he'd expected, and carried an edge of impatience that suggested she wasn't used to being ignored. He looked up. She stood in the doorway with one hand on her hip, backlit by the fluorescent hallway lights. Mid-20s, maybe. Dark hair pulled into a messy bun. Sharp eyes that were currently studying him like he was a particularly interesting problem to solve. "You're Hayes?" she asked. "Caleb?" "Lila Grant. I'm starting with the analytics team upstairs. They told me you're the one who actually knows where everything is plugged in." He set down the cable he'd been working on and stood, brushing dust off his jeans. "Depends what you need." "Like I said, dedicated line. We're pulling data sets that'll choke the shared network. I need something that won't crash every time someone in accounting decides to stream a conference." Caleb walked over to the wall-mounted network diagram, tracing the paths with one finger. "Third floor? Northeast corner. That's going to be a problem. Main trunk runs up the west side. I'd have to pull new cable through the ceiling, punch through 2 firewalls. Literally, the walls are fireproofed, and configure a separate VLAN. That's at least 3 days of work. Maybe 4. Lila crossed her arms. "How long if I help?" He turned to look at her. "You know how to run cable?" "I know how to follow instructions and hold a flashlight. And I'm guessing you don't have a lot of people volunteering to crawl around in dusty ceilings." She wasn't wrong. The last time Caleb had requested help from the facilities team, they'd sent an intern who'd spent 20 minutes complaining about his allergies before disappearing for the rest of the day. 2.5 days, Caleb said. Maybe 3. But it's not glamorous work. Good thing I didn't take this job for glamour. Lila stepped further into the room, glancing around at the racks of equipment. "When can we start?" "You haven't even officially started working yet." "I start Monday. Today's Thursday. That gives us tomorrow to get ahead of it." Caleb studied her. There was something uncomfortably direct about the way she met his eyes, like she was actually seeing him instead of looking past him the way most people did. "Why do you care this much about a network cable?" Lila's expression shifted just slightly. "Because if I don't set things up right from the start, I'll spend the next 6 months fighting fires instead of doing actual work. I've been through that before, not interested in repeating it." It was a good answer. Practical. Focused. The kind of answer Caleb himself would give. "Tomorrow morning," he said. 7 a.m. Bring gloves." She smiled, quick and genuine. Done. After she left, Caleb stood alone in the server room for a long moment, staring at the doorway where she'd been. He had a bad feeling about this. Friday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of late autumn weather that made everything feel slightly hostile. Caleb pulled into the DataCorp parking lot at 6:45, coffee in hand, and found Lila already waiting by the side entrance. She'd dressed for the work, old jeans, a faded university sweatshirt, hair tied back. She held 2 more cups of coffee. "Figured you might want a backup," she said, offering one. Caleb took it. "You're early." "I'm always early. Late feels like losing." They took the service elevator up to the 3rd floor, neither speaking. The building was nearly empty at this hour, just the hum of HVAC systems and the distant sound of a cleaning crew somewhere below. Caleb led her to a utility closet that most employees didn't even know existed. Inside, he pulled down a folding ladder and clicked on a heavy-duty flashlight. "Ceiling access is through here," he said. "It's going to be tight, hot, and full of fiberglass insulation that will make you itch for a week if you're not careful. You sure about this?" Lila pulled on a pair of work gloves. "Lead the way." The crawl space above the 3rd floor was exactly as miserable as promised. Caleb moved through it with the efficiency of practice, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness as he traced the path they'd need to follow. Behind him, Lila kept pace without complaint. "There," he said, pointing to where the main conduit ran along a support beam. "We need to tap in here and run new cable northeast about 60 feet, then punch down through the ceiling tile above your office. 60 feet of cable in a space this size. Fun. Could be worse. Could be asbestos." "Is there asbestos?" "Building's too new, mostly just regret and poor ventilation." Lila laughed, an unexpected sound in the cramped darkness. "You're funnier than you look." Caleb didn't know what to do with that, so he focused on pulling cable from the spool he'd hauled up earlier. They worked in a rhythm that developed naturally, him feeding the line, her securing it along the beam with plastic clips, both of them moving carefully to avoid putting weight on the ceiling tiles below. An hour in, Lila paused to wipe sweat from her forehead. "So what's your story, Caleb Hayes?" "Don't have one." "Everyone has a story." "Mine's boring. I fix networks, I go home. That's it." "Family?" He hesitated just long enough that she noticed. "Sorry," Lila said quickly. "You don't have to—" "I have a daughter, Emma. She's 4. "Oh." Lila's voice shifted, warming. "That's not boring. That's the opposite of boring." Caleb kept his eyes on the cable. "Her mom's not in the picture, hasn't been since Emma was 6 months old, so it's just us." "That must be hard." "It's life, you adapt." They continued working in silence for a while. Caleb was grateful she didn't push further, didn't ask the questions people usually asked. What happened? Where did she go? Do you ever hear from her? He'd learned those questions never came from real curiosity. They came from the same place as reality TV and traffic accidents. People wanted to see the wreckage. "I'm engaged," Lila said suddenly. Caleb's hand stilled on the cable. "Okay." "His name is Trevor. We've been together since college. He's in finance. We're supposed to get married next summer." "Congratulations." "Thanks." She was quiet for a moment. "He's a good guy, stable, responsible. My parents love him." Caleb waited. There was clearly more. "He's also one of the most boring human beings I've ever met." The words came out flat, matter of fact, like she was reading a weather report. "Then why are you marrying him?" Caleb asked. "Because that's what you do, right? You meet someone nice in college. You date for the appropriate amount of time. You get engaged. You buy a house. You have 2.5 kids and a golden retriever. You attend dinner parties and talk about mortgage rates and preschool waiting lists. Sounds like you've got it all figured out." "Sounds like I'm walking into a cage and locking it behind me." Caleb turned to look at her in the dim flashlight glow. Her expression was hard to read, somewhere between resigned and furious. "So don't," he said simply. Lila let out a sharp breath. "Right, just walk away from a 4-year relationship and disappoint everyone who's already bought plane tickets for the wedding. Simple." "I didn't say it was simple. I said don't do it if you don't want to." "You don't understand. My family, Trevor's family, they've already planned everything. The venue, the photographer. My mother has a binder with fabric swatches. A binder, Caleb. Your mother's not the one getting married." Lila stared at him, and for a moment he thought she might snap back with something cutting. Instead, she laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're right, she's not, but sometimes it sure feels like she is. They finished the cable run in silence. By the time they dropped back down through the access panel into the third-floor hallway, it was nearly noon. Both of them were covered in dust and insulation fibers, sweating despite the building's aggressive air conditioning. Lila pulled off her gloves and examined her hands. Well, that was disgusting. Told you. When do we finish the connection? Monday. I need to configure the network settings and test the throughput. Shouldn't take more than a couple hours. I'll bring coffee again. You don't have to do that. I know. She met his eyes again with that same unsettling directness. See you Monday, Caleb. She walked away down the hallway, and Caleb stood there watching her go, that bad feeling from yesterday settling deeper in his chest. Monday arrived with freezing rain that turned the morning commute into a nightmare. Caleb dropped Emma at preschool 20 minutes late, earning a pointed look from the teacher that he pretended not to notice. By the time he made it to Data Core, he was soaked and irritable and already counting down the hours until he could leave. Lila was waiting in the server room with coffee and a determined expression. Ready to finish this? She asked. They spent the morning running tests and fine-tuning the connection. Lila asked good questions, not the vague, frustrated questions most people asked when technology didn't immediately do what they wanted, but specific, targeted questions that showed she was actually trying to understand how things worked. Why does it matter which port it's connected to? She asked, watching him swap cables. Because the switch routes traffic differently depending on VLAN assignment. If I plug this into the wrong port, your data ends up competing with everyone else's, which defeats the whole purpose. So it's like having a private road versus a highway. Exactly like that. By lunch, they had the system running smoothly. Lila tested it from her new office upstairs, streaming a massive data set while Caleb monitored the network performance from below. Everything held steady. We're good, he said into his phone. You're good, Lila corrected. I just held the flashlight. You held it in the right places. He could hear her smile through the phone. High praise from Caleb Hayes. I'll treasure it forever. After they hung up, Caleb sat in the server room and tried to ignore the fact that he was still smiling. The weeks that followed developed a pattern. Lila would appear in the server room with questions about network performance or data transfer speeds, questions that were usually legitimate but didn't always require asking in person. Caleb would answer them, and then somehow they'd end up talking about other things. She told him about her work, analyzing consumer behavior patterns for the company's clients. He told her about Emma, about the chaos of bedtime routines, and the creative ways a 4-year-old could avoid eating vegetables. Have you tried telling her broccoli is baby trees? Lila suggested one afternoon. She said trees don't go in mouths and refused to elaborate. Smart kid. Too smart. She's going to be running circles around me by the time she hits kindergarten. You sound proud. Terrified, mostly. These conversations happened in the margins. 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there. Never long enough to be obvious. Never scheduled or planned. But they happened more and more frequently. And Caleb found himself looking forward to them in a way that felt dangerous. He'd gotten good at not wanting things. Wanting things meant disappointment. Wanting things meant caring about outcomes you couldn't control. But Lila made him forget that. 3 weeks after the cable installation, Caleb was leaving the building late when he found her in the parking lot, standing next to a car with its hood propped open. She was on her phone, clearly frustrated. No, I don't know what's wrong with it, she was saying. It just started making a horrible grinding sound and then died. Can you come get me or not? Caleb hesitated. This wasn't his problem. He could keep walking, get in his own car, drive away. That would be smart. That would be safe. He walked over instead. Lila glanced up, surprised. I'll call you back, she said into the phone, then hung up. Hey, car trouble? Apparently my engine has decided tonight is a great night to self-destruct. She gestured at the open hood. I don't suppose you know anything about cars. A little. He leaned in and spent a few minutes checking obvious culprits, battery connections, belt tension, fluid levels. The smell of burned rubber was immediate and obvious. Your serpentine belt's shredded, he said, pointing. That's the grinding sound you heard. It drives the alternator and the water pump, so without it, Your battery's dead and your engine's overheating. Can you fix it? Not here. You need a new belt and probably a tow to a shop. Lila let out a long breath. Fantastic. Trevor's out of town and won't be back until tomorrow. I guess I'm calling a rideshare. Where do you live? Northside, about 20 minutes from here. Caleb made a decision he knew he'd regret. I can give you a ride. You don't have to do that. I know. She looked at him for a long moment, and he couldn't read the expression on her face. Finally, she nodded. Okay, thanks. The drive started in silence. Caleb focused on the road, hyper-aware of Lila sitting in the passenger seat. The rain had picked up again, drumming against the windshield. You said Trevor's out of town, Caleb asked, mostly to fill the quiet. Business trip. Chicago. He goes twice a month. Must be hard. It's fine. Honestly, I barely notice anymore. That seemed like the kind of thing you shouldn't say about someone you were planning to marry, but Caleb kept the thought to himself. What about you? Lila asked. You date at all, or is it just you and Emma against the world? Just us. Dating as a single parent isn't exactly straightforward. Because of logistics or because you don't want to? Both. Mostly I don't see the point. Anyone I bring into Emma's life becomes part of her life. And that's not something I'm willing to gamble on. So you've just opted out? More or less? Lila was quiet for a moment. That sounds lonely. It's safe. Those aren't the same thing. Caleb didn't have a good answer for that, so he let the conversation drop. They pulled up outside a modest apartment complex on the north side of town. Lila gathered her bag and reached for the door handle, then stopped. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like you made a bunch of decisions that seemed right at the time, and now you're stuck with this version of yourself that you don't actually recognize? Caleb thought about the years after Emma's mother left, the nights spent walking a screaming infant around a too small apartment, the constant fear that he was doing everything wrong, the slow, painful process of accepting that he was completely, utterly alone in this. Yeah, he said quietly. I know exactly what that feels like. Lila's eyes met his, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. Thanks for the ride, she said. She got out of the car and Caleb watched her walk up to the building entrance. Just before she reached the door, she turned back and waved. He drove home through the rain, and the bad feeling in his chest had turned into something else entirely. December hit like a punishment. The weather turned bitter, the kind of cold that made the short walk from the parking lot to the building feel like an endurance test. Emma caught a nasty cough that kept both of them up at night. Work ramped up as companies pushed to finish projects before the holiday break. Caleb barely saw Lila for 2 weeks. When he did run into her, it was in passing, hallways, elevators, the occasional shared moment in the break room. She always smiled, always asked how he was doing, but there was a tension to her now that hadn't been there before. The week before Christmas, Datacorp threw its annual holiday party. Caleb had successfully avoided it for the past 3 years, but this year, his manager had made attendance strongly encouraged, which was corporate speak for mandatory. He showed up late, stayed near the back, and counted down the minutes until he could reasonably leave. Lila found him anyway. Hiding? She asked, appearing beside him with a glass of wine. Blending in. You're terrible at blending in. You're literally standing in a corner by yourself. Strategic positioning. She laughed, and the sound cut through the generic holiday music and forced cheerfulness around them. She looked different tonight, dressed up, makeup done, hairstyled, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Where's Trevor? Caleb asked. Home. He doesn't do work parties. Smart man. Practical man. There's a difference. They stood together in silence, watching their coworkers engage in the elaborate social performance that office parties required. I need to tell you something, Lila said suddenly. Caleb's stomach dropped. Okay. Trevor and I set a date, June 15th. His mother already booked the venue. That's good. Congratulations. Is it good? Lila turned to look at him, and her eyes were too bright. Because it doesn't feel good. It feels like I'm watching a train come toward me, and I'm tied to the tracks, and everyone keeps telling me how lucky I am to have such a nice train. Lila, do you ever think about the things you want to say but can't? The words that just sit in your chest because letting them out would break everything? Caleb's throat tightened. All the time. What if I said them anyway? I'd tell you to think very carefully about what happens next. Lila looked away, blinking hard. You're right. I know you're right. You should probably go talk to other people. People who aren't me. What if I don't want to? Lila? She set down her wine glass with deliberate care. I need some air. Walk with me? It was a terrible idea. Caleb knew it was a terrible idea, but he followed her anyway. They ended up on the empty rooftop terrace, 5 stories above the city. The cold was vicious, but the view was clear. Downtown lights stretching out below them, and beyond that darkness. Lila leaned against the railing, arms crossed against the wind. This is better. You're going to freeze. Worth it. Caleb stood beside her, maintaining careful distance. The silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things neither of them was saying. I wish you were mine, Lila said quietly. The words hit him like a physical blow. Don't, Caleb said. I know I shouldn't say it, but I'm so tired of pretending I don't feel it. You're engaged. I'm aware. To someone else. I'm aware of that too. She turned to face him. Do you have any idea how rare it is to meet someone who actually sees you? Not the version of you that's convenient or expected, but the real thing underneath? Lila, stop. Everyone in my life has an opinion about who I should be. My parents want me to marry well and settle down. Trevor wants me to fit into his 5-year plan. My friends want me to be happy but also not rock the boat because my unhappiness makes them uncomfortable. Her voice cracked slightly. And then there's you. You don't want anything from me. You just see me. And that's terrifying. Caleb's hands gripped the railing. You think I don't want anything? Do you? The question hung between them. Every instinct Caleb had developed over the past 4 years screamed at him to shut this down, to step back, to protect himself and Emma from the inevitable mess that came with wanting something he couldn't have. But he was so tired of being careful. Yeah, he said finally. I want things I have no right to want. Lila moved closer, not touching, but close enough that he could feel the heat of her despite the cold. Like what? Lila. Tell me. This is a bad idea. I know. Tell me anyway. Caleb closed his eyes. I want to know what it would be like to wake up next to you. I want to hear what you sound like when you laugh at something stupid, Emma said. I want to build something real with someone who actually gives a damn instead of just going through the motions. He opened his eyes and looked at her. And I want you to be happy. Actually happy. Not just okay with the life everyone else picked for you. Lila's breath caught. Caleb, but none of that matters. Because you're engaged to someone else, and I'm not the kind of person who breaks up relationships. So we're going to go back downstairs, and we're going to pretend this conversation never happened, and you're going to marry Trevor in June like you planned. What if I don't want to? Wanting and doing are different things. Are they? Lila's eyes were fierce now. Because from where I'm standing, you want me and I want you, and the only thing stopping us is the fact that we're both too scared to do anything about it. It's not about being scared, it's about being responsible. You have a whole life planned out. I have a daughter who depends on me. We don't get to blow everything up just because we feel something. So we do nothing. We just accept that this is as good as it gets. Caleb forced himself to step back, to put physical distance between them. You need to figure out what you actually want, Lila, and you need to do that without me clouding the picture. If you don't want to marry Trevor, then don't marry him. But make that choice for yourself, not because of some guy you barely know who fixed your network cable. You're not some guy, and you know it. Go home, Caleb said, and his voice came out rougher than he intended. Please. Lila stared at him for a long moment. Then she grabbed her coat and walked toward the door without another word. Caleb stayed on the roof for another 20 minutes, letting the cold numb everything else. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur. Emma's cough finally cleared up. Caleb worked through the holidays, grateful for the distraction. He didn't see Lila at all. Her team was apparently on a different holiday schedule, and the third floor stayed dark most of the week. He told himself it was better this way. On New Year's Eve, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, Caleb sat alone in his living room and tried to feel something about the year ending, about the year beginning, about anything. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? It's me. Lila's voice, quiet and tired. I got your number from the company directory. I hope that's okay. Caleb's heart kicked against his ribs. It's fine. You okay? I broke up with Trevor. The words didn't register at first, then they hit all at once. What? 3 days ago, right before Christmas, I told him I couldn't marry him, that it wouldn't be fair to either of us. Caleb stood up, pacing. Lila, I need you to know this wasn't because of you. I mean, it was partly because of you, but not the way you think. You asked me what I actually wanted, and I realized I didn't have an answer. I've spent 4 years building a life with someone I don't even like that much because it seemed like the responsible thing to do. And I'm done with that. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. Angry, hurt, confused. His mother called me 17 times on Christmas Day. I stopped answering after the 5th. I'm sorry. Don't be. This was my choice. I own it. She paused. The thing is, I need to figure out who I am without someone else's expectations in my head. And I can't do that if I'm jumping straight from one relationship into another. Caleb's chest tightened. He knew where this was going. So I'm asking you to give me space, Lila continued. Not forever, just time to get my head straight. Okay. Really? Just okay? What else am I supposed to say? You're doing the right thing. It doesn't feel right. It feels like I finally did something brave, and now I have to walk away from the one person who actually understood why. You're not walking away forever. You're taking time to figure things out. That's smart. Lila let out a shaky breath. I don't feel smart. I feel terrified. Good. That means it matters. They were both quiet for a moment. Somewhere in the distance, Caleb could hear fireworks starting, people celebrating the new year. I should go, Lila said. Yeah. Caleb? Yeah? Thank you for seeing me. The line went dead before he could respond. Caleb stood in his dark living room, phone in hand, and listened to the fireworks outside. Emma stirred in her bedroom, but didn't wake. He didn't know if what Lila had just done was the beginning of something or the end. He didn't know if he'd ever hear from her again, or if this was just how the story ended, with good intentions and careful distance, and two people doing the responsible thing. But for the first time in 4 years, Caleb had let himself want something. And maybe that was enough. January arrived with the kind of cold that felt personal. Caleb went back to work on the 2nd, moving through the building like he always had. Invisible, efficient, forgettable. The server room became his refuge again. He threw himself into projects that didn't require thinking about anything except cables and configurations and problems with clear solutions. Lila's office on the 3rd floor stayed dark for the first week, then the 2nd. By the 3rd week, Caleb stopped checking. Emma turned 5 in mid-January. They celebrated with a small party at a pizza place. 6 kids from preschool, too much sugar, and a mechanical singing bear that terrified half the children and delighted the other half. Emma declared it the best day of her entire life, which made the cleanup and the credit card bill almost worth it. Daddy, can we get a real bear? She asked on the drive home, still wearing her party hat. No? What about a small bear? Also no. A picture of a bear? We can print one from the computer. Emma considered this. Okay, but it has to be a happy bear, not a scary one. Deal. She fell asleep in the car, chocolate cake smeared on her chin. Caleb carried her up to their apartment, got her into pajamas without fully waking her, and stood in her doorway for a long moment watching her breathe. This was enough, he told himself. This was everything that mattered. He almost believed it. The next morning, Caleb was replacing a failed switch in the server room when his phone buzzed with an email from HR. Subject line: Analytics Team Restructure. He skimmed it without much interest. Organizational changes rarely affected the infrastructure team until he saw Lila's name. Effective immediately, Lila Grant would be transitioning to a remote position, working from the company's satellite office 2 hours north. Her replacement would start the following Monday. Caleb read the email 3 times. Then he closed it and went back to work. She'd asked for space. This was space. This was exactly what she needed. Physical distance, a fresh start, a chance to figure things out without him complicating the picture. It was the right thing. So why did it feel like he'd been punched in the chest? That evening, after Emma was in bed, Caleb sat on his couch with a beer he wasn't drinking and stared at his phone. Lila's number was still in his recent calls from New Year's Eve. He could send a text, just something simple, something that acknowledged she was leaving without making it weird. He typed and deleted 5 different messages before giving up. What was he supposed to say? Good luck with the new job? Thanks for the coffee that one time? I think about you more than I should and it's starting to scare me? He set the phone down and went to bed. February brought a different kind of cold, the wet, penetrating kind that soaked through everything. Emma's preschool sent home a notice about a flu outbreak. Caleb stocked up on children's medicine and braced himself. Work continued in its predictable rhythm. Lila's replacement, a quiet guy named Marcus who kept headphones on most of the day, submitted tickets through the portal like everyone else. No one showed up in the server room with coffee and questions. Caleb told himself he preferred it this way. He was eating lunch alone in his car one afternoon in late February when his phone rang. Unknown number again. He answered without thinking. Don't hang up, Lila said immediately. Caleb's hand tightened on the phone. I wasn't going to. Good, because I need to talk to you and I've been putting it off for 6 weeks, and if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose my nerve. Okay. I'm miserable. The words came out fast, like she'd been holding them back too long. The new job is fine. The apartment is fine. Everything is perfectly fine, and I hate all of it. Caleb didn't know what to say, so he waited. I thought distance would help, Lila continued. I thought if I removed myself from the situation, I could figure out what I actually want without all the noise. But it turns out the noise wasn't external. It's in my head. And no matter how far I drive, I can't get away from it. What kind of noise? The kind that sounds like your voice telling me to figure out what I want. And the problem is, I know what I want. I've known since December. I just didn't want to admit it because it felt too fast and too complicated and too likely to blow up in my face. Caleb's heart was doing something irregular. Lila, I want you. I want whatever this is between us. I want to see where it goes, even though it terrifies me. And I know that's not fair because I asked you for space and now I'm taking it back, but I can't keep pretending I'm okay when I'm not. Caleb closed his eyes. Where are you right now? My apartment. Why? Stay there. I'll call you back in 2 hours. What? Why 2 hours? Because I need to pick up Emma from preschool, make her dinner, and get her settled with a movie. And then I need to have a conversation with you that I can't have while I'm sitting in a parking lot eating a sandwich. Lila was quiet for a moment. Then, okay. 2 hours, Caleb repeated, and hung up before he could say something stupid. The next 2 hours were torture. Emma was full of energy, talking nonstop about the finger painting project she'd done, and how Marcus, different Marcus, a kid in her class, had eaten paste and the teacher had to call his mom. Caleb nodded and responded at appropriate moments while his brain spun in circles. What was he doing? Lila had walked away from a 4-year relationship. She'd uprooted her entire life. She was vulnerable and confused and looking for something stable to hold on to. Was he really going to take advantage of that? But she'd called him. She'd said she knew what she wanted, and if he was honest, really honest, he knew what he wanted too. After dinner, he set Emma up with her favorite movie and retreated to his bedroom. His hands were shaking slightly as he called Lila back. She answered on the first ring. Hi, she said. Hi. Neither of them spoke for a moment. I'm scared, Lila said finally. Me too. What are we scared of? Caleb thought about it. Screwing this up. Hurting each other. Moving too fast. Not moving fast enough. Pick one. All of the above? Yeah, all of the above. Lila laughed, shaky but real. So what do we do? I don't know. I've never done this before. What, dated someone? Dated someone I actually care about. Everyone else was just practice. Going through the motions. This feels different. Different how? Like it matters. Like if I mess this up, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Lila's breath caught. Caleb, you asked for honesty. That's honest. I'm 2 hours away. I know. I can't just leave my job again. I've already burned through most of my credibility with the company. I know that too. So what are we doing here? Caleb stood up, started pacing his small bedroom. We're figuring it out. Long distance isn't ideal, but it's not impossible. We can see each other on weekends. Take it slow. Actually get to know each other outside of server rooms and parking lots. You'd be willing to do that? Drive 2 hours each way? For something that matters? Yeah, I would. Lila was quiet for so long that Caleb thought the call had dropped. Then, can you come this weekend? I have Emma. Bring her. I want to meet her. Caleb's stomach flipped. Lila, that's too much? Too fast? Both. She's 5 years old. She gets attached to people. If this doesn't work out, then we'll handle it like adults. But I'm not asking to move in with you, Caleb. I'm asking to meet your daughter, to be part of your actual life instead of just this thing that exists in phone calls and hypotheticals. She was right. If they were going to try this, Emma had to be part of the equation from the start. Pretending otherwise would only make things worse down the line. Okay, Caleb said. Saturday. I'll text you when we're leaving. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Emma's going to ask you approximately 8,000 questions. Good. I like questions. After they hung up, Caleb sat on the edge of his bed and tried to process what he'd just agreed to. 2 hours each way with a 5-year-old in the car. Introducing Lila as what? A friend? Someone he was seeing? How did you explain adult relationships to a kindergartner? From the living room, Emma called out, Daddy, the movie's over! Caleb pushed himself up and went to deal with the immediate problem. The rest could wait until Saturday. Saturday morning dawned clear and unreasonably cold. Caleb dressed Emma in layers, thermal shirt, sweater, winter coat, while she peppered him with questions about where they were going. To visit a friend, he said for the 5th time. What's their name? Lila. Is she nice? I think so. Does she like bears? I don't know. You can ask her. Does she have a dog? No idea. Can we get a dog? No. Emma pouted but allowed herself to be buckled into her car seat. Caleb loaded up a bag with snacks, activities, and backup entertainment, then pointed the car north. They were 20 minutes into the drive when Emma asked, Is Lila your girlfriend? Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What makes you ask that? Because you're being weird? You only get weird about girls. I'm not weird about girls. Yes, you are. Remember when Miss Sarah from school asked if you wanted to get coffee and you said you had to wash your hair? I needed to wash my hair. You don't have that much hair, Daddy. Caleb sighed. Lila is someone I like spending time with. We're figuring out if we want to spend more time together. That's all. So she is your girlfriend. It's complicated. Grown-ups always say that when the answer is yes. Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. They stopped once for gas and bathroom breaks, then pressed on. Emma fell asleep somewhere around the 90-minute mark, which gave Caleb too much time alone with his thoughts. What if this was a disaster? What if Emma didn't like Lila? Or worse, Lila didn't like Emma. What if the chemistry they'd had before disappeared the moment real life entered the picture? What if he was making a massive mistake? But then he thought about Lila's voice on the phone, raw and honest. I want you. I want whatever this is between us. He kept driving. Lila's apartment was in a converted industrial building near the downtown area of a small city Caleb had driven through but never stopped in. He texted when they pulled up, and she met them at the entrance. She looked different than he remembered. No work clothes, just jeans and a soft green sweater. Her hair was down. She looked nervous. Emma tumbled out of the car, fully awake now and vibrating with energy. Hi, she announced. I'm Emma, and this is my daddy, and we drove for 100 hours to get here. 2 hours, Caleb corrected. It felt like 100. Emma turned her attention to Lila. Do you like bears? Lila crouched down to Emma's level, smiling. I do like bears. What kind of bears do you like? Happy ones, not scary ones. Daddy says we can't get a real bear, but we can get a picture. That sounds like a good compromise. Emma studied Lila with the unnerving intensity that children specialized in. You're pretty. Thank you, so are you. I know, Daddy says I look like my mama, but I don't remember her because she left when I was a baby. Caleb winced. Emma. It's okay, Lila said gently, still focused on Emma. That must be hard sometimes. Emma shrugged. I have Daddy. He's good at braids and making pancakes that look like animals. He sounds pretty great. He is, but he gets lonely sometimes, I can tell. And there it was, the emotional gutting delivered by a kindergartner with zero filter. Lila stood up, her eyes meeting Caleb's. Something wordless passed between them. Let's go inside, she said. It's freezing out here. Lila's apartment was small but carefully put together, comfortable furniture, bookshelves lined with actual books, plants that looked healthy. Emma immediately gravitated toward a collection of glass paperweights on the windowsill. Can I touch them? She asked. Gently, Lila said. They're fragile. Emma held each one up to the light, examining the swirls of color trapped inside the glass. Caleb watched Lila watch his daughter, and something in his chest loosened. They spent the afternoon doing normal things. Lila had researched kid-friendly activities in the area and found a children's museum that Emma declared was almost as good as her birthday party. They got pizza for lunch. Emma talked non-stop, and Lila listened like every word mattered. By late afternoon, Emma was starting to crash. They ended up back at Lila's apartment, and Emma curled up on the couch with a blanket and a picture book, her eyes already drooping. Caleb and Lila stood in the kitchen, speaking in low voices. She's amazing, Lila said. She's exhausting. That too, but mostly amazing. You don't have to be nice about it. I know dealing with a 5-year-old wasn't what you signed up for. Lila frowned. What I signed up for was you. Emma is part of you. I knew that going in. Knowing it and experiencing it are different things. Caleb, she stepped closer. Stop trying to talk me out of this. I'm not. Yes, you are. You've been doing it since we got here, looking for reasons why this won't work, expecting me to bail the moment things get real. She wasn't wrong. People leave, Caleb said quietly. That's what I've learned. They say they'll stay and then they don't. And I can handle that for myself, but Emma doesn't deserve that. I'm not going to promise I'll never hurt you. I'm human. I'll screw up. But I'm not going to run just because things get complicated. Lila reached out, tentative, and took his hand. I'm here, Caleb. Actually here. You have to let me be here. From the living room came the soft sound of Emma snoring. Caleb looked down at their joined hands. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I, so we'll figure it out together. It sounded so simple when she said it like that. They migrated to the living room, sitting on the floor with their backs against the couch where Emma slept. They talked in whispers, about Lila's new job, about Caleb's work, about nothing and everything. Tell me about Emma's mom, Lila said eventually. Caleb tensed. Why? Because she's part of your story. And if we're doing this, I want to know your actual story, not the edited version. He was quiet for a long time, then. Her name was Rachel. We were together for about a year. It wasn't serious. We weren't serious. Then she got pregnant, and we tried to make it work because that felt like what we were supposed to do. But it didn't work. She left when Emma was 6 months old, said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she'd made a mistake and needed to fix it before it was too late. Did she ever come back? No. I get a card on Emma's birthday sometimes, always postmarked from a different city, never a return address. Lila's hand found his again. That's brutal. It was, for a while. But then I realized I was better off alone than with someone who didn't want to be there. Emma deserved better than a mother who stayed out of obligation. Do you ever worry about her coming back? Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, but mostly I just focus on what I can control. And I can't control Rachel. They sat in silence for a while, Emma's soft breathing the only sound. I'm going to mess this up, Lila said suddenly. What? Us. This. I'm going to say the wrong thing, or push too hard, or not push enough. I'm going to have days where I'm impossible to deal with. I'm going to make you regret giving me a chance. Probably, Caleb agreed. She laughed, surprised. That's it? Just probably? You think I'm not going to mess up? I'm emotionally constipated, terrible at communicating, and my default response to problems is to shut down and hope they go away. We're both going to screw this up regularly. So why try? Because the alternative is spending the rest of my life wondering what if. And I'm tired of safe. I'm tired of invisible. I want something real, even if it's messy and complicated and probably doomed to fail. Lila shifted closer, her shoulder pressing against his. It's not doomed. You don't know that. No, but I choose to believe it anyway. They stayed like that until Emma woke up, disoriented and cranky, announcing she was hungry again. They ordered Chinese food and ate it on the floor while Emma explained the entire plot of her favorite movie in excruciating detail. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged Lila goodbye without being prompted. Can we come back next week? She asked. Lila looked at Caleb. He nodded. Absolutely, Lila said. The drive home was quieter. Emma dozed in the back seat while Caleb replayed the day in his head, looking for cracks, for warning signs, for reasons to retreat. He couldn't find any. His phone buzzed with the text from Lila. Thank you for today, for trusting me with her. He typed back. Thank you for seeing us. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I'm falling for you both, just so you know. Caleb's hands tightened on the wheel. He waited until he was home, until Emma was in bed, until he was alone in the dark quiet of his bedroom. Then he typed, I'm falling too. March came in like a whisper. They fell into a pattern. Caleb and Emma driving north every other weekend, sometimes Lila driving south to meet them halfway at parks or restaurants, or anywhere that wasn't too far from either of them. They talked on the phone most nights after Emma was asleep. They texted throughout the day, stupid things and serious things, and everything in between. It wasn't easy. The distance made spontaneity impossible. Coordinating schedules around Emma's preschool and Caleb's work and Lila's deadlines required the kind of planning usually reserved for military operations. But it worked. Somehow, it worked. Emma started drawing pictures of Lila, stick figures with wild hair and a big smile. Caleb found them tucked into his lunch bag, slipped between the pages of his work notebooks, taped to the bathroom mirror. She's pretty, Emma explained one morning. Pretty people should have pictures. Oh, that's very thoughtful of you. When is Lila coming to our house? I don't know, sweetheart. You should invite her. We have extra space. Caleb wasn't sure his 1-bedroom apartment counted as extra space, but he appreciated the sentiment. That night, he mentioned it to Lila on the phone. Emma's asking when you're coming to visit us instead of us always coming to you. I was wondering the same thing, Lila admitted. I'd like to see where you live, where Emma lives, the whole picture. It's not impressive. The apartment's small and the building's old, and there's a weird smell in the hallway that I've never been able to identify. I don't care about impressive. I care about real. So that weekend, Lila drove south. Caleb stress cleaned the apartment, then felt stupid about stress cleaning because Lila had already made it clear she didn't care about impressive. Emma helped by reorganizing her stuffed animals 17 times and asking if they should make a welcome sign. They made a welcome sign. When Lila arrived, Emma was practically vibrating with excitement. She gave Lila a comprehensive tour that lasted approximately 3 minutes and covered every room, closet, and Emma's very specific opinions about which corner of the living room got the best light for reading. And this is Daddy's room, Emma announced, pushing open the door without asking. He doesn't have a lot of stuff because he says clutter makes his brain hurt. Caleb stood in the hallway, mortified, while Lila examined his aggressively minimal bedroom with obvious amusement. It's very organized, she said. I like things simple. I can see that. They spent the weekend doing ordinary things, playground visits, grocery shopping, cooking dinner together in Caleb's narrow kitchen. Lila fit into their routine like she'd always been there, stepping in to help with bedtime when Emma was melting down about brushing her teeth, laughing at Caleb's terrible jokes, existing in his space without making it feel crowded. Sunday morning, Emma crawled into Caleb's bed at dawn and whispered, I like Lila. Can we keep her? People aren't pets, Em. I know, but can we? Caleb looked over at the couch where Lila was still asleep, curled up under the spare blanket he'd given her. I'm working on it. After Lila left that evening, the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. Like something essential had been removed. Emma felt it too. When is she coming back? She asked. Soon. How soon? I don't know, baby. Soon. Emma considered this, then climbed into his lap. Daddy? Yeah? Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? Because you smile more now when you talk to Lila. When we go see her. You look different. Caleb pulled her closer. Yeah, I'm happy. Good. You should be happy more. Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. April brought warmer weather and longer days and a creeping sense that something was about to shift. Lila's contract with the satellite office was coming up for renewal. She'd been vague about it on the phone, changing the subject whenever Caleb asked. Finally, on a rainy Saturday when they were all stuck inside her apartment playing board games that Emma was definitely cheating at, Lila brought it up. I need to tell you something, she said, after Emma had gone to investigate a noise in the hallway that was probably just the neighbor's cat. Caleb set down his cards. Okay. The company offered me a permanent position, full benefits, significant raise, the whole package. That's great. It's here. 2 hours away, not at the main office where you are. Caleb's stomach sank. Oh. I turned it down. What? Lila met his eyes. I turned it down. I told them I wanted to transfer back to the main office, even if it means taking a step back in title, even if it means less money. I want to be there. Lila, you can't give up a promotion for you? Yes, I can. I am. She reached across the table, taking both his hands. I've spent my entire life making decisions based on what other people think I should do. Safe choices. Smart choices. Choices that look good on paper but feel wrong in practice. And I'm done with that. This is your career. My career will survive. But this matters more. You matter more. Emma matters more. Being 2 hours away sounded manageable in February, but it's April now, and I hate every minute we're apart. Caleb didn't trust himself to speak. Say something, Lila said. Are you sure? Completely. Because if you do this and then regret it, I won't regret choosing you. I might regret a lot of things in my life, but you won't be one of them. Emma burst back into the room. False alarm. It was definitely the neighbor's cat. I saw its tail. She climbed back into her chair and picked up her cards, oblivious to the earthquake that had just occurred. Lila squeezed Caleb's hands once more, then let go. Your turn, I think. He played his card automatically, his brain still spinning. She was coming back. Lila was coming back. For him. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep on the couch and they were cleaning up the game pieces in comfortable silence, Caleb finally found words. Thank you, he said quietly. Lila looked up. For what? For choosing this. For choosing us. I know it wasn't easy. Actually, it was the easiest decision I've ever made. She set down the cards she'd been gathering. Caleb, I spent 4 years with someone I didn't love because leaving felt harder than staying. And then I spent 6 weeks alone trying to convince myself I was better off independent. But the truth is, I don't want to be alone. I want to be with you. I want to read bedtime stories to Emma and argue with you about whose turn it is to do dishes and build something real. That's not settling. That's choosing. Caleb crossed the room and kissed her. It was their first kiss. Somehow they'd made it 4 months without getting there, dancing around it, waiting for the right moment. This was the right moment. When they broke apart, Lila was smiling. Took you long enough. I wanted to do it right. How's this for right? She kissed him again, and somewhere in the back of Caleb's mind, the fear that had lived there for 4 years started to dissolve. Maybe this would work. Maybe they'd figure it out. Maybe he didn't have to be invisible anymore. Lila's transfer took 3 weeks to finalize. 3 weeks of paperwork and exit interviews and the awkward process of explaining to her current team why she was leaving a promotion to go back to a job she'd already had. Her manager looked at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had, but she signed the papers anyway. She moved back on a Tuesday in early May, driving a rented truck stuffed with her belongings and a determination that felt both terrifying and exactly right. Caleb had offered to help, but Lila insisted on doing it herself. She needed to know she was choosing this without leaning on him to make it easier. By Wednesday morning, she was back at her old desk on the 3rd floor of DataCore Solutions, fielding questions from coworkers who'd heard rumors but weren't sure what to believe. "I thought you were doing really well up north," Marcus said, appearing at her cubicle with coffee. "I was, but the commute was killing me." It wasn't entirely a lie. The commute had been killing her, just not in the way Marcus assumed. She lasted until lunch before finding an excuse to go down to the server room. Caleb was there, as she'd known he would be, bent over a laptop with that focused expression she'd come to recognize. He looked up when the door opened, and his face did something complicated when he saw her. "You're back," he said. "I'm back." They stared at each other for a moment, and Lila felt suddenly awkward, like they were strangers who'd forgotten how to talk to each other without 2 hours of highway between them. "How's the new apartment?" Caleb asked. "Small, loud neighbors. The shower has exactly 2 settings, freezing and scalding." "Sounds perfect." "It's 15 minutes from here. That's all that matters." Caleb set down the laptop and stood, closing the distance between them. "I'm glad you're back." "Me too." He kissed her, quick and careful, like he was still getting used to the idea that he was allowed to. Lila wanted to pull him closer, to make up for 3 weeks of distance, but this was his workplace and she was his coworker, and there were limits to what they could do in a server room. "Dinner tonight?" she asked when they broke apart. "I have Emma." "I know. I'm asking if I can come over for dinner, with both of you." Something in Caleb's expression softened. "Yeah, okay. Come over." That evening, Lila showed up at Caleb's apartment with groceries and a plan to cook something that wouldn't horrify a 5-year-old. Emma answered the door in princess pajamas and immediately launched into a detailed explanation of why her preschool teacher was wrong about dinosaurs. "Miss Kelly says they all died from a meteor, but I think some of them probably survived and turned into chickens," Emma announced. "That's actually pretty close to the real science," Lila said, impressed. "See, Daddy? Lila knows about dinosaurs." They made pasta together. Emma's job was stirring the sauce, which she took extremely seriously. Caleb set the table while Lila dealt with the garlic bread, and the whole thing felt strangely domestic in a way that should have been scary, but wasn't. After dinner, Emma insisted on showing Lila her entire collection of stuffed animals, complete with backstories and elaborate relationship dynamics that rivaled any soap opera. By the time Caleb wrestled her into bed, it was almost 9. Lila stood in the kitchen, doing dishes that Caleb had insisted she didn't need to do, when he emerged from Emma's room looking exhausted. "She's out," he said. "Finally. She has a lot of energy." "That's a generous way to put it." He picked up a dish towel and started drying. "Thank you for coming over. For dinner? For all of it." "You don't have to thank me. I wanted to be here." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Caleb said, "People at work are going to talk." Lila had been expecting this. "Probably. Does that bother you?" "Does it bother you?" Caleb considered. "I don't know. I've spent so long trying not to be noticed that the idea of people paying attention to my personal life feels wrong." "We don't have to tell anyone. We can keep it quiet." "For how long? Eventually someone's going to notice that we're spending time together, that I'm different. People notice when you change, even if they didn't notice you before." Lila set down the dish she'd been washing and turned to face him. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want?" "I asked you first." Caleb smiled, small and tired, but real. "I want to stop hiding. I'm just not sure I know how." "Then we'll figure it out together, like everything else." The talking started the following week. It was subtle at first, sidelong glances in the break room, conversations that stopped when Caleb walked past, the way people's eyes would flick between him and Lila during team meetings. Caleb tried to ignore it, but the attention felt like static electricity, making his skin prickle. "They're just curious," Lila said one afternoon when he mentioned it. "Give it a few weeks and they'll move on to something else." But the curiosity didn't fade. It intensified. Someone, Caleb never found out who, had apparently done the math on the timeline. Lila had been engaged last fall. She'd broken it off around Christmas. She'd left for the satellite office in January. Now she was back, and she and Caleb were clearly together, and the gossip mill wanted to know if he was the reason she'd blown up her life. "Did you hear about Grant and Hayes?" Caleb overheard in the hallway one morning. "I heard she left her fiancé for him." Poor guy was already planning the wedding. Hayes, though? Really? I didn't even know he could talk to women. Caleb kept walking, jaw tight, pretending he hadn't heard. That evening, he was shorter with Emma than he meant to be, snapping at her when she spilled juice on the floor. She stared at him with wide, hurt eyes, and the guilt hit him like a fist. "I'm sorry, baby," he said, crouching down. "I'm just having a bad day. That's not your fault." "Is it because of the talking people?" "What?" "The people at work, the ones who make you sad." Caleb pulled her into a hug. "How do you know about that?" "You get quiet when you're sad, and you've been really quiet." He held her tighter. "I'll try to be less quiet." "You should talk to Lila. She makes you less quiet." So he called Lila after Emma went to bed. "People think I broke up your engagement," he said without preamble. Lila was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, I've been getting some of that too. Does it bother you?" "The talking? Not really. The assumptions about you? That pisses me off. I don't want you to have to defend me." "I'm not defending you. I'm correcting a false narrative. There's a difference." "Lila, you didn't break up my engagement, Caleb. I did. Because I was with the wrong person and I was too much of a coward to admit it until you showed me what it felt like to be with someone who actually saw me. That's on me, not you." "People don't see it that way." "Then people are idiots, but their opinions don't change what's real." Caleb wanted to believe that, but the weight of other people's judgment was starting to feel heavier than he'd anticipated. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. Caleb was in the cafeteria, eating lunch alone the way he always did, when a woman from accounting sat down across from him. Her name was Jennifer, and they'd maybe exchanged 10 words in 3 years. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Caleb looked up from his sandwich. "Okay. Are you and Lila Grant actually together, or is that just a rumor?" "Why does it matter?" "Because Trevor, Lila's ex, his sister works in my department, and she's been telling everyone that Lila cheated on him, that she was seeing you while they were still engaged." Caleb's hands tightened on his sandwich. "That's not true." "So you weren't seeing each other before she broke up with him?" "We were friends. That's it." "But you wanted to be more than friends." "I don't see how that's your business." Jennifer leaned back, studying him. "I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying people talk. And right now they're saying you're the guy who ruins relationships. You might want to get ahead of that." She left before Caleb could respond. He sat alone in the cafeteria, sandwich forgotten, and felt something inside him start to crack. That night, he told Lila what had happened. "I'm going to talk to HR, she said immediately. "Don't." "Caleb, Trevor's sister is spreading lies about you. And if you go to HR, it becomes a whole thing. Investigations and meetings and everyone picking sides. I don't want that." "So you're just going to let people think you're some kind of homewrecker?" "I don't know what I'm going to do, but escalating this isn't the answer." Lila was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I hate this. I hate that people are making you feel like you did something wrong when all you did was exist. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should have waited longer before—" "No, don't do that. Don't let other people's garbage make you question what we have." "I'm not questioning us. I'm questioning whether I can handle being the subject of office gossip for the next 6 months. It won't be 6 months. It'll die down. You don't know that." "You're right, I don't. But I know that walking away from you because some people decided to be judgmental assholes would be the worst mistake of my life." Caleb rubbed his eyes. "I'm tired, Lila." "I know, me too. I should go. Emma needs a bath." "Okay. Call me later?" "Yeah." But he didn't call her later. He gave Emma a bath, read her 3 stories instead of the usual one, and then sat in the dark living room trying to figure out when his life had gotten so complicated. He'd spent years being invisible, specifically to avoid this. The scrutiny, the judgment, the feeling that everyone was watching and waiting for him to fail. And now, because he'd been stupid enough to want something, he was right back in the spotlight he'd worked so hard to escape. His phone buzzed with a text from Lila. "I love you." It was the first time she'd said it. Caleb stared at the words for a long time, his chest tight. Then he turned off his phone and went to bed. The next few days were tense. Caleb pulled back, not dramatically, but enough that Lila noticed. He kept their conversations at work brief and professional. He canceled their standing dinner plans, claiming Emma wasn't feeling well. He responded to Lila's texts but didn't initiate any. He told himself he was being practical, giving people less to talk about, protecting them both from more scrutiny. But really, he was running. On Friday, Lila cornered him in the server room. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "I'm working." "I don't care. Talk to me. What's going on?" "Nothing's going on. Don't lie to me, Caleb. You've been distant all week. You won't look at me. You're shutting me out." He kept his eyes on the cable he was connecting. "I'm not shutting you out. I'm just busy." "Busy? Right." Lila's voice was sharp. "Is this about what I said? About loving you?" Caleb's hand stilled. "No." "Then what is it? Because one minute we're fine and the next you're acting like I don't exist. Maybe we need some space." The words came out before he could stop them. Lila went very still. "Space. This is moving too fast. People are talking. Emma's getting attached. I need to think about what's best for her. And what's best for her is you pushing away someone who cares about both of you? What's best for her is stability, not her dad's relationship being the subject of office gossip. So that's it? Someone said something mean and you're just going to run away?" "I'm not running away. I'm being realistic." "No, you're being a coward." The word hit him like a slap. "You don't get to say that," Caleb said, his voice low and dangerous. "Yes, I do. Because that's what this is. You're scared that people are judging you, so you're doing exactly what they expect. You're proving them right. You're walking away." "I'm protecting my daughter." "From what? From me?" "I love her, Caleb. I love both of you. And I know that's terrifying, but you don't get to use Emma as an excuse to run when things get hard." Caleb finally looked at her. "You said it yourself. You're going to mess this up. We both are. And when that happens, Emma's the one who gets hurt. So we don't let it happen. We fight for this instead of giving up at the first sign of trouble. This isn't the first sign. This is me realizing I made a mistake." The words hung in the air between them. Lila's face went pale. "I don't believe you." "Believe whatever you want." "Look at me and say it. Look at me and tell me you don't want this." Caleb met her eyes. He opened his mouth to say the words that would end it cleanly, but nothing came out. Because it would be a lie, and they both knew it. "I can't do this right now," he said instead, and walked out of the server room. He made it to his car before the shaking started. He sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at his chest. What had he just done? His phone rang. Lila's name on the screen. He didn't answer. It rang again 5 minutes later, and again after that. On the fourth call, he turned off his phone. That night, Emma asked where Lila was. "She's busy," Caleb said. "When is she coming over?" "I don't know, sweetheart." "Did you have a fight?" Caleb looked at his daughter, too perceptive, too smart, too good at reading the things he tried to hide. "Yeah," he admitted. "We had a fight. Are you going to say sorry?" "It's complicated." Emma frowned. "Grown-ups always say that. But sorry isn't complicated. You just say it." If only it were that simple. The weekend was brutal. Emma was cranky and out of sorts, picking up on Caleb's mood even though he tried to hide it. He took her to the park, to the library, anywhere that might distract them both. Nothing helped. Sunday night, after Emma finally fell asleep, Caleb sat on his couch and made himself face what he'd done. He'd told Lila they were a mistake. He'd pushed her away because people were talking. He'd taken the one real thing in his life and thrown it away because he was too scared to fight for it. Emma's words echoed in his head. Sorry isn't complicated. You just say it. But sorry wouldn't fix this. Sorry wouldn't undo the hurt he'd caused. Sorry wouldn't change the fact that he'd looked Lila in the eye and told her she was a mistake when she'd just told him she loved him. He picked up his phone, finger hovering over her contact. Then he put it down again. What was he supposed to say? That he'd panicked? That he was sorry? That he loved her too but was terrified of what that meant? All of it was true. None of it felt like enough. Monday morning arrived with the kind of dread usually reserved for dental surgery. Caleb dropped Emma at preschool and drove to work on autopilot. The DataCorps building loomed ahead like a prison. He parked in his usual spot and sat for a moment, gathering courage he wasn't sure he had. Then he saw Lila's car in the lot, and his stomach dropped. He made it through the morning by avoiding the third floor entirely. He worked in the server room with the door locked, responding to tickets remotely instead of in person. It was cowardly, and he knew it. Just before lunch, his manager sent an email requesting a meeting. Caleb's first thought was that Lila had gone to HR after all. His second was that he probably deserved whatever was coming. He showed up at the manager's office at the appointed time, braced for the worst. "Hayes," his manager said, gesturing to a chair. "Thanks for coming. This won't take long." "Okay." "I wanted to give you a heads up. There's been some talk about you and Lila Grant." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I'm aware. I don't care what you do on your personal time. That's your business. But when it starts affecting workplace dynamics, it becomes my business." "Has it affected workplace dynamics?" "A couple people have expressed concern. Nothing formal. But I wanted to address it before it becomes a problem." "What kind of concern?" The manager looked uncomfortable. "The timing of her return, the nature of your relationship, whether there was any overlap with her previous engagement." "There wasn't." "I believe you, but perception matters. And right now, the perception is that you're in a relationship with a coworker that may have started under questionable circumstances." Caleb felt his temper starting to fray. "So what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you keep things professional at work. No public displays of affection. No extended personal conversations during business hours. Make it clear that whatever's happening between you two isn't interfering with your job performance." "We broke up." The words came out flat and final. His manager blinked. "Oh, well, that simplifies things. Is there anything else?" "No, that's all. Sorry to hear about the breakup." Caleb left the office feeling hollowed out. He made it through the rest of the day by sheer force of will. When 5 o'clock finally came, he grabbed his stuff and headed for the exit. Lila was waiting by his car. She looked terrible, tired and pale, like she hadn't slept in days. Probably because she hadn't. Neither had he. "We need to talk," she said. "Lila, no, you don't get to run this time. You said things you didn't mean because you were scared, and I let you walk away because I was angry. But I'm done being angry. I'm done giving you space. We're going to talk about this like adults." Caleb glanced around the parking lot. Several people were watching them with undisguised interest. "Not here," he said. "Then where?" He thought about it. "My car. Get in." They drove in silence to a park a few miles away. The same park where he'd taken Emma yesterday, trying to outrun his thoughts. Now it was empty, except for a woman walking a dog in the distance. Caleb parked and turned off the engine. Neither of them moved. "I love you," Lila said finally. "I know you didn't respond when I said it before. I know you freaked out and pushed me away. But I'm saying it again because it's true, and you need to hear it. I love you." Caleb stared straight ahead. "You shouldn't." "Why not?" "Because I'm a mess. Because I hurt you. Because I'm going to keep hurting you every time I get scared and default to running away." "Probably, but I'm still choosing you anyway." "Why?" Lila turned in her seat to face him. "Because when I'm with you, I'm the version of myself I actually want to be. Not the version my parents want, or the version Trevor needed, or the version my friends expect. Just me. Messy and imperfect and trying to figure it out. You deserve better than someone who can't handle a little office gossip. I deserve someone who sees me, who lets me see them back. That's you, Caleb. Even when you're being an idiot." Despite everything, he almost smiled. "I said you were a mistake." "I know. I didn't mean it. I know that too. I don't know how to fix this." Lila reached across the center console and took his hand. "Start by telling me the truth. Not the version you think I want to hear, the actual truth." Caleb closed his eyes. "I'm terrified, every day, that I'm screwing up Emma, that I'm not enough for her, that anyone who gets close enough to see what a disaster I am will leave. And when people started talking, it confirmed everything I've been afraid of, that I don't deserve this, that I'm going to ruin your life the way I've ruined everything else." "You haven't ruined anything." Rachel would disagree. "Rachel left because she wasn't ready to be a parent. That's on her, not you. I wasn't enough to make her stay. You were 26 years old with a newborn. Nobody would have been enough to make her stay if she didn't want to be there." Caleb opened his eyes. "I love you too. I should have said it when you did. I should have said a lot of things, but I was too busy being terrified to actually say what I felt. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Say it again. I love you. I love you, and I'm sorry I tried to push you away. I'm sorry I let other people's opinions matter more than what we have. I'm sorry I was a coward. You're not a coward. You're scared. There's a difference. Emma said the same thing, about sorry not being complicated. Smart kid. Too smart. They sat in silence for a moment, hands still linked across the center console. So what now? Lila asked. Now I stop running. I stop hiding. I stop letting fear make my decisions for me. That sounds good in theory. What does it look like in practice? Caleb thought about it. It looks like me telling everyone at work that we're together, and I don't care what they think. It looks like me showing up for you instead of pulling away when things get hard. It looks like me being brave enough to actually build a life with someone instead of just surviving alone. Can you do that? I don't know, but I want to try. Lila leaned across the console and kissed him. That's all I'm asking. They stayed in the park until the sun started to set, talking through everything they'd been too scared or angry to say before. It wasn't easy. There were hard truths and hurt feelings and moments where Caleb wanted to retreat back into safety, but he didn't. He stayed. He fought. And slowly, the crack inside him started to heal. When Caleb picked up Emma from preschool that evening, she took one look at his face and said, You talked to Lila. How did you know? You're not quiet anymore. She was right. Something had shifted. Not back to where they'd been before, but forward into something new. Something that required him to actually show up instead of just going through the motions. Is she coming for dinner? Emma asked hopefully. Not tonight, but soon. Good. I missed her. Caleb pulled her close. Me too, baby. The next morning, Caleb walked into DataCore with his shoulders back and his jaw set. He'd practiced what he was going to say, then thrown out the script because it sounded too rehearsed. In the end, he decided the truth was simple enough that it didn't need dressing up. He found Lila in the break room, pouring coffee with the careful focus of someone who hadn't slept well. When she saw him, her hand stilled on the pot. Hey, he said. Hey. Several people were in the break room, conversations pausing as they registered Caleb and Lila in the same space for the first time since their fight. Caleb could feel the attention like static electricity. He crossed the room and kissed her. Not dramatically, not for show, just a simple, honest kiss that said, I'm here and I'm not hiding anymore. When they broke apart, Lila was staring at him with wide eyes. What was that? She whispered. That was me not being a coward. Someone dropped a spoon. The clatter echoed in the sudden silence. Caleb turned to face the room. Lila and I are together. We have been for a while. If anyone has questions or concerns about that, you can talk to me directly instead of speculating behind our backs. No one said anything. Okay then, Caleb said. He grabbed his own coffee and walked out, leaving Lila to follow when she was ready. His hands were shaking by the time he made it back to the server room. He'd just done the exact opposite of everything he'd trained himself to do for the past 4 years. He'd made himself visible, vulnerable, a target. His phone buzzed, text from Lila. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the stupidest. Haven't decided which yet. He typed back, Can it be both? Leela, definitely both. I love you. Caleb, love you too. The talking didn't stop immediately. If anything, it intensified for a few days, but it was different now. Instead of whispered speculation, it was open curiosity. People asked direct questions instead of spreading rumors. Some were supportive, some were judgmental. Most just wanted to know the story. Caleb answered honestly when asked. Yes, they were together. No, there hadn't been any overlap with Lila's previous engagement. Yes, they were figuring it out as they went. The woman from accounting, Jennifer, stopped him in the hallway one afternoon. I owe you an apology, she said. Caleb was genuinely surprised. For what? For listening to gossip instead of just asking you what actually happened. Trevor's sister has been on a campaign, and I let myself get swept up in it. That wasn't fair to you or Lila. Appreciate that. For what it's worth, I think you two are good together. She's been different since she came back. Happier. After Jennifer walked away, Caleb stood in the hallway feeling something unfamiliar. Acceptance, maybe. Or at least the beginning of it. The real test came 2 weeks later when Lila's parents came to visit. Lila had mentioned them occasionally, her mother's opinions, her father's expectations, the weight of being their only daughter. But she'd been vague about when they might meet Caleb, always changing the subject when he asked. "They don't know about you," she admitted finally, over dinner at her apartment. Caleb set down his fork. "What do you mean they don't know about me?" "They know I'm seeing someone. They don't know the details." "Like the fact that I have a kid? Like the fact that you exist as a specific person with a specific life? I've been keeping it vague." "Why?" Lila looked uncomfortable. "Because my mother is going to have opinions. A lot of them. And I wanted to have us be solid before I subjected you to the interrogation." "Is that what this is? An interrogation?" "No. Maybe. Probably." She reached across the table for his hand. "My parents are complicated. They had specific expectations for my life, and I've spent the past year systematically dismantling every single one. They're not thrilled about it. So I'm just another disappointment." "You're not a disappointment, but you're also not a finance guy with a trust fund and a vacation house in the Hamptons, which is what my mother was hoping for." Caleb pulled his hand back. "Maybe I shouldn't meet them." "Too late. They're coming this weekend, and I already told them about you. Well, most of you." "Most of me?" "I may have left out the part about Emma. I wanted to ease them into it." Caleb stood up, suddenly needing distance. "You're ashamed of her." "What? No. Caleb, that's not—" "You told them about me, but not about the most important person in my life. What am I supposed to think?" Lila stood too. "You're supposed to think that I'm trying to navigate a complicated family dynamic without throwing you to the wolves before you're ready." "I'm ready. Emma's ready. We've been ready. You're the one who's not ready." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You left Trevor because you were tired of living up to other people's expectations. But you're still doing it. You're still trying to manage your mother's opinions instead of just living your life." Lila's eyes flashed. "You don't know my mother." "No, I don't. Because you won't let me meet her. You won't let her know the real version of your life because you're scared she won't approve. I'm trying to protect you." "I don't need protection. I need you to stop treating Emma like something you have to apologize for." The words hit harder than he'd intended. Lila flinched like he'd struck her. "I would never apologize for Emma," she said quietly. "I love that kid." "Then act like it. Tell your parents the truth, all of it. Or don't have them visit at all." He grabbed his jacket and left before she could respond. The drive home was a blur of anger and hurt. He knew he'd been harsh. He knew Lila was trying to navigate an impossible situation. But the idea that she'd hidden Emma from her parents, like Emma was some kind of liability, cut deeper than anything else. When he got home, he paid the babysitter and checked on Emma. She was asleep, surrounded by stuffed animals, her hair a wild tangle across the pillow. Caleb sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe, trying to calm the storm in his chest. His phone buzzed. "Lila, you're right. I'm sorry. I'll tell them everything." He didn't respond. Another text. "I'm not ashamed of Emma. I'm not ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of myself for caring so much what my mother thinks." Then, "Please talk to me." Caleb typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Tomorrow. I need some time. Lila." "Okay." He turned off his phone and tried to sleep. It didn't work. The next day at work was tense. Caleb buried himself in tickets and avoided the 3rd floor. Lila didn't seek him out, which he appreciated and resented in equal measure. That evening she called. He almost didn't answer. "I told them," she said as soon as he picked up. "About Emma, about your situation, all of it." "And?" "My mother had questions. A lot of questions." "I bet." "She wants to meet you, both of you, this weekend like we planned." Caleb closed his eyes. "Lila, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm asking you to give this a chance. Give them a chance. They're not perfect, but they're my family, and I need them to understand why I chose you." "Why did you choose me?" The question came out quieter than he'd intended. Lila's voice softened. "Because you see me. Because you make me braver than I am on my own. Because when I'm with you, I'm not trying to be anyone except exactly who I am. And because I look at you with Emma, and I see the kind of parent I hope I could be someday. Caleb sat down on his couch, the fight draining out of him. You really want us to meet them? Yes. I know it's going to be awkward and uncomfortable, and my mother is probably going to say something wildly inappropriate, but I want you there. I need you there. Okay? Okay? We'll do it. But Lila, no more hiding, no more managing their expectations at our expense. If they can't accept us as we are, then that's their problem, not ours. Deal. Saturday arrived with the kind of beautiful weather that felt like a cosmic joke. Sunny and warm when Caleb's insides felt like a tornado. He dressed Emma in her favorite dress, the purple one with flowers that she insisted made her look like a princess. He put on the one button-down shirt he owned that didn't have a frayed collar. Do I look okay? He asked Emma. She studied him seriously. You look nervous. I am nervous. Why? It's just Lila's mommy and daddy. Right, just that. They met at a restaurant Lila had chosen. Upscale enough to impress her parents, casual enough that Emma wouldn't feel completely out of place. Caleb spotted them through the window as he parked, Lila sitting ramrod straight between two older people who radiated the kind of polished confidence that came from money and certainty. Emma grabbed his hand as they walked in. I got you, Daddy. Her small fingers squeezed his, and something in Caleb's chest settled. Lila stood when she saw them, her smile bright but fragile. Mom? Dad? This is Caleb Hayes, and this is Emma. Lila's mother, perfectly coiffed, expensive jewelry, smile that didn't reach her eyes, extended a hand. Patricia Grant. Lovely to meet you. Her father was warmer, shaking Caleb's hand with genuine firmness. Robert, Lila's told us a lot about you. Good things, I hope, Caleb said, and immediately regretted it. What a stupid thing to say. But Robert smiled. Mostly good. She mentioned you're quite talented with network infrastructure. It's what I do. Patricia's attention had shifted to Emma, who was studying the elaborate flower arrangement on the table with obvious fascination. And you must be Emma, Patricia said. Lila tells us you're 5 years old. Emma nodded. I'm almost 6. My birthday was in January, but I'm almost 6 now, even though it's only May. Time does move forward, Patricia agreed. What grade are you in? Kindergarten. I can read 17 words. 17. How specific? I counted them. Despite himself, Caleb felt a flicker of pride. Emma had no idea she was being evaluated. She was just being herself, curious, honest, completely unfiltered. They sat down, and the waiter brought menus that Caleb scanned with growing concern. The prices were astronomical. He did a quick mental calculation of his checking account and tried not to panic. Order whatever you'd like, Robert said, as if reading his mind. This is our treat. You don't have to I insist. The meal started politely enough. Patricia asked questions about Caleb's work, his apartment, his plans for Emma's education. Each question felt like a test he wasn't sure he was passing. And Emma's mother? Patricia asked eventually, her tone carefully neutral. Caleb's jaw tightened. She's not in the picture. By choice or circumstance? Mom, Lila said sharply. I'm simply asking. It's relevant information. It's not relevant to anything, Lila said. But Caleb shook his head. It's fine, her choice. She left when Emma was 6 months old. We haven't heard from her since, except for occasional birthday cards. Patricia absorbed this. That must be difficult. Raising a child alone. It has its challenges. I imagine it limits your options, professionally, socially. Mom. I'm not being rude, Lila. I'm acknowledging reality. Single parenthood is demanding. It requires sacrifices. Emma, who'd been quietly working on her macaroni and cheese, looked up. What sacrifices? Caleb touched her shoulder. It means giving up things that aren't as important as you are. Like sleep, Emma said knowledgeably. Daddy says I sacrificed his sleep. Robert laughed, genuine and surprised. Sounds about right. But Patricia wasn't finished. Lila, darling, have you thought about what this means, long term? What means? This relationship. You're 26 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. Do you really want to take on the responsibility of someone else's child? The table went silent. Lila's face had gone very still. Emma isn't a responsibility. She's a person. And yes, I've thought about it. I think about it every day. I'm simply saying, I know what you're saying, Mom. You're saying I'm making another impulsive decision, that I'm throwing away my future on someone who doesn't fit your vision of what my life should look like. But here's the thing. I don't care about your vision anymore. I care about mine. Patricia's expression hardened. There's no need to be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest. You wanted me to marry Trevor because he checked all your boxes. Good family, good job, good prospects. But I would have been miserable. And I'm not going to be miserable just to make you comfortable. Trevor was a good man. Trevor was boring. He was safe and predictable, and I didn't love him. I tried to love him for 4 years, and it never happened. Love is something you build, Lila. It's not some fairy tale emotion that strikes like lightning. You're right. It's not. It's something you choose every day, even when it's hard, even when people judge you for it. And I choose Caleb. She reached under the table and found his hand. I choose both of them. Emma, who'd been following the conversation with wide eyes, said, I choose Lila too. The simple declaration broke something in the tension. Robert cleared his throat, looking between his wife and daughter. Patricia, perhaps we should focus on getting to know Caleb and Emma rather than interrogating Lila's life choices. Patricia's mouth pressed into a thin line, but she nodded. Of course. The rest of the meal was stilted but civil. They talked about safer topics, Emma's favorite subjects in school, Caleb's plans for her summer break, Lila's work projects. Patricia asked no more pointed questions, though her disapproval radiated like cold air. When they finally said goodbye in the parking lot, Robert pulled Caleb aside while Patricia talked to Lila. My daughter is headstrong, he said. Always has been. Once she makes up her mind about something, there's no changing it. I've noticed. She's happy with you, I can see that. Her mother will come around eventually. She just needs time to adjust to the idea that Lila's life isn't going to look like she planned. And you? Caleb asked. What do you think? Robert smiled. I think you make my daughter braver than she's ever been. And I think Emma is lucky to have you as a father. That's enough for me. He shook Caleb's hand again and walked away. In the car, Emma was uncharacteristically quiet. You okay? Caleb asked. Lila's mommy doesn't like us. Caleb's chest tightened. She doesn't know us yet. Sometimes people need time. But Lila likes us. She said so. She did. And we like her? We do. Emma considered this. Then it doesn't matter what her mommy thinks. We have each other. Out of the mouths of 5-year-olds. That night, after Emma was asleep, Lila came over. She looked exhausted, emotionally wrung out. I'm sorry, she said immediately. My mother was awful. She was protective. There's a difference. She basically told me I was ruining my life. She told you she's scared you're making a mistake. That's not the same thing. Lila collapsed onto his couch. Why are you defending her? I'm not defending her. I'm saying I get it. You're her only daughter and she wants the best for you. She just has a different definition of best than you do. She has no right to judge you or Emma. Actually, she has every right. You're asking her to accept that you walked away from the life she wanted for you and chose something completely different. That's hard for parents. Lila looked at him. You're not angry? I was, but then Emma said something in the car that put it in perspective. What did she say? That it doesn't matter what your mother thinks because we have each other. Lila's eyes filled with tears. That kid is too smart for her own good. Tell me about it. She moved closer, resting her head on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For handling that with more grace than I did. For not running when my mother basically called you a mistake. For still being here. Caleb wrapped an arm around her. I told you I was done running. I meant it. They sat in silence for a while, the apartment quiet except for the distant sound of traffic outside. My dad likes you, Lila said eventually. Yeah? He told me you remind him of my grandfather. Steady. Reliable. The kind of person who shows up when it matters. That's high praise. It is. My grandfather basically raised me while my parents were working. He's the reason I turned out even remotely functional. Caleb kissed the top of her head. You're more than remotely functional. Debatable. They stayed like that until Lila's eyes started drooping. Caleb walked her to her car, kissed her goodnight, and watched her drive away. Back inside, he checked on Emma one more time. She was sprawled across her bed, one leg hanging off the side, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. He adjusted her blanket and stood there for a moment, watching her breathe. They were building something real, something that didn't look like anyone's expectations but was theirs, flawed and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. The following week settled into a new rhythm. Lila became a regular presence in their lives, joining them for dinners, helping with Emma's bedtime routine, slowly integrating into the small world Caleb had built. Patricia called Lila weekly, their conversations tense but civil. Robert sent occasional emails asking about Emma's latest achievements, which Lila forwarded with obvious pride. At work, the gossip faded into background noise. People moved on to other scandals, other dramas. Caleb and Lila's relationship became just another fact of office life, unremarkable in its ordinariness. One evening in late June, Caleb was fixing dinner while Emma showed Lila her latest art project, a painting of what appeared to be either a bear or a very hairy dog. It was hard to tell. It's beautiful, Lila said seriously. It's a bear, a happy one. I can see that. Emma studied Lila for a moment. Are you going to stay? Lila glanced at Caleb, who was suddenly very focused on chopping vegetables. What do you mean, sweetie? Are you going to stay with us? Or are you going to leave like my first mommy? The kitchen went silent except for the sound of Caleb's knife against the cutting board. Lila crouched down to Emma's level. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? I promise. Your dad and I might have fights sometimes, and there might be days when we're grumpy with each other. But I'm not leaving. You're stuck with me. Emma threw her arms around Lila's neck. Good. Because I love you. Lila's eyes met Caleb's over Emma's shoulder, shining with tears. I love you too, Emma. That night, after Emma was asleep, Caleb and Lila sat on the couch with the lights dim and the TV on mute. She asked me if I was staying, Lila said quietly. I heard. What if I can't keep that promise? What if something happens and I have to leave? Caleb pulled her closer. Then we'll deal with it. But right now, in this moment, you're here. That's enough. Is it? For Emma? Yeah. She doesn't need guarantees. She just needs to know you're choosing her today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Lila was quiet for a long time. Then, I want to move in with you. Caleb's breath caught. What? I want to move in. My lease is up in August. I'm spending most of my time here anyway. It makes sense. Lila, I know it's fast. I know it's a big step. But I'm ready. Are you? Caleb thought about the small apartment, the single bedroom, the complete upheaval this would cause. He thought about all the reasons it was too soon, too complicated, too risky. Then he thought about coming home to Lila every day, about Emma having someone else in her corner, about building a life that was messy and imperfect and real. Yeah, he said, I'm ready. Moving Lila into the apartment turned out to be less about logistics and more about negotiating the reality of 3 people sharing a space designed for 2. The first problem was immediate and obvious. There was 1 bedroom. I'll take the couch, Lila said on moving day, surveying the cramped living room already filled with boxes. You're not sleeping on the couch in your own home, Caleb said. Then what do you suggest? Emma needs her room, and you need yours. We share mine. That's what people do when they live together. Lila looked at him. You've never shared a bedroom with anyone. Not really. Rachel left before that became a thing. So I'll learn. What if you hate it? What if I snore or steal the covers or eat? Then we'll figure it out. Stop looking for reasons this won't work. She smiled, small but real. Old habits. The second problem revealed itself over the next few weeks. Lila was messier than Caleb had anticipated. Not disaster-level messy, just lived-in messy. She left coffee cups on random surfaces. Her shoes appeared in places shoes had no business being. She had strong opinions about where things should go that directly contradicted his existing organizational system. Why can't the plates go here? she asked one evening, reorganizing the kitchen for the third time. Because that's where the bowls go. But it makes more sense to have plates near the stove. The bowls have been there for 4 years. And now I'm here, so things change. Caleb opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right. Things did change. That was the whole point. Fine. Plates by the stove. Lila blinked. Really? Really. But the coffee mugs stay where they are. Deal. Emma adapted faster than either of them. She loved having Lila around full-time, treating it like an extended sleepover that never ended. She showed Lila all her secret hiding spots, recruited her for elaborate stuffed animal tea parties, and insisted Lila read bedtime stories in funny voices. "You're better at the princess voice than Daddy," Emma declared one night. "Hey," Caleb protested from the doorway. "It's true. Daddy does all the voices the same." "I do not." "You kind of do," Lila agreed. By August, they'd settled into a routine that worked more often than it didn't. Caleb handled breakfast while Lila got Emma dressed. Lila did afternoon pickup from summer camp while Caleb worked late. They traded off dinner duty and bath time and the 1,000 other small tasks that came with raising a kid. It wasn't smooth. There were arguments about parenting approaches and whose turn it was to do laundry and whether Emma really needed another stuffed animal. But they figured it out, one day at a time. The first real test came in September. Emma started first grade, which meant new routines and new anxieties, and approximately 8 million forms that needed signing. One of those forms asked for emergency contacts. Caleb filled in his information in the first slot, then paused at the second. Lila found him at the kitchen table that night, staring at the blank line. "What's wrong?" she asked. "This form. It wants 2 emergency contacts. So put me down. You're not her legal guardian. If something happened and they couldn't reach me, then they'd call me and I'd handle it until you got there. But legally," Lila sat down across from him. "What are you really worried about?" Caleb set down the pen. "What if something happens to me? I don't have a will. I don't have custody arrangements. If I died tomorrow, Emma would end up in foster care because there's no one else." "You're not going to die tomorrow." "You don't know that. And I should have dealt with this years ago, but I kept putting it off because dealing with it meant acknowledging that I'm doing this alone." "You're not alone anymore." "I know, but you're not her mother. You don't have legal rights. And if something happened, then we fix that," Lila said simply. "We talk to a lawyer. We set up guardianship. We make sure Emma's protected no matter what." Caleb looked at her. "You'd want that? That kind of responsibility?" "Caleb, I already have that responsibility. I'm helping raise her. I'm making decisions about her education and her health and what she eats for dinner. The legal paperwork is just catching up with reality. It's a huge commitment. So is moving in together. So is promising Emma I wouldn't leave. I'm already committed. This just makes it official." They met with a lawyer the following week, a woman in her 50s who specialized in family law and didn't blink when Caleb explained the situation. "So you want to designate Lila as Emma's guardian in the event of your death," she confirmed, typing notes. "Yes." "And you're not married?" "Not yet," Lila said. Caleb's head snapped toward her. "What?" "I said not yet. As in, we're not married now, but might be in the future. That's accurate, isn't it?" The lawyer looked between them with barely concealed amusement. "I'll just mark down unmarried partners for now." They left the office with paperwork that would take a few weeks to process and a conversation that clearly wasn't finished. "Not yet," Caleb said in the parking lot. Lila unlocked her car, not meeting his eyes. "What about it?" "You said we're not married yet. That implies you think we will be." "Do you not think we will be?" Caleb stopped. Did he think they'd get married? A year ago, he couldn't imagine letting anyone into his life. Now he couldn't imagine his life without Lila in it. "I don't know. I haven't thought about it." "Well, think about it now." "Right here? In a parking lot?" "Why not?" Caleb looked at her, standing next to her car with her arms crossed, challenging him the way she'd challenged him about everything from network cables to his entire approach to life. "Yeah," he said. "I think we will. Eventually." Lila's expression softened. "Eventually works for me." October brought cooler weather and the realization that Caleb's apartment was too small for 3 people long term. They started looking at two-bedroom places, nothing fancy, just something with enough space that they weren't constantly tripping over each other. "What about this one?" Lila asked one evening, showing him a listing on her laptop. Caleb looked at the rent and winced. "That's almost double what I'm paying now." "We'd be splitting it." "Still out of my budget." "Then we adjust the budget. I make more than you do, Caleb. We can afford this." The comment landed wrong. Caleb closed the laptop. "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity. It's combining resources. That's what couples do. Couples who make the same amount, sure, but you're basically subsidizing my life." Lila's jaw tightened. "So what's your solution? We stay in this cramped apartment forever because your pride won't let me contribute more?" "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying I should be able to provide for my own kid without needing someone else to make it possible. Emma's not just your kid anymore, she's ours. And providing for her means making smart decisions, not protecting your ego." The words stung because they were true. "I need some air," Caleb said, grabbing his jacket. "Caleb!" But he was already out the door. He walked for an hour, circling the neighborhood in the dark, trying to untangle the knot in his chest. Lila was right. She was right about all of it. But accepting her money felt like admitting he wasn't enough on his own. That he'd failed at the one thing he'd spent 6 years trying to prove, that he could do this alone. Except he wasn't alone anymore. And maybe that was the point. When he got back, Lila was on the couch with her laptop closed, clearly waiting for him. "I'm sorry," he said before she could speak. "You're right. About the apartment, about combining resources, about me being stupidly proud. I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have called it your ego. But it is my ego. I've spent so long trying to prove I don't need help that I forgot it's okay to accept it." Lila patted the couch next to her. Caleb sat. "I don't think less of you because I make more money," she said quietly. "If anything, I respect you more for doing what you've done with what you had. It doesn't feel like enough. It's more than enough. You raised an incredible kid on your own. You built a life from nothing. That matters more than salary brackets." Caleb leaned back, closing his eyes. "I don't know how to let you help without feeling like I'm failing." "Maybe start by recognizing that accepting help isn't failing. It's just being human." They signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment in November. Ground floor, small yard, walking distance to Emma's school. Emma got her own room, which she immediately declared needed to be painted purple. They compromised on one purple wall. Moving day was chaos. Emma was overexcited and unhelpful, running between rooms and announcing which box should go where based on criteria only she understood. Lila's parents showed up unexpectedly, Patricia's expression making it clear she had opinions about the neighborhood. "It's very modest," Patricia said, surveying the living room. "It's perfect," Lila replied firmly. Robert helped Caleb assemble furniture while the women unpacked boxes. By evening, the apartment looked like a bomb had gone off, but the beds were made and the kitchen was functional. Patricia pulled Lila aside before they left. Caleb pretended not to listen while he helped Emma sort her stuffed animals. "Are you happy?" Patricia asked her daughter. "Yes, Mom, I'm happy." "Truly?" "Truly. I know this isn't what you wanted for me, but it's what I want, and that has to be enough." Patricia was quiet for a moment, then, "He's a good father, I can see that. He's the best person I know." "And you're sure about this? About taking on someone else's child?" "She's not someone else's child, she's mine too. Not legally yet, but in every way that matters." Caleb's throat tightened. Emma tugged on his sleeve, oblivious. "Daddy, where does Mr. Fuzzles go?" "Wherever you want him to go, baby." After Patricia and Robert left, the three of them collapsed on the couch, still in its plastic wrap because neither Caleb nor Lila had energy to unwrap it. "I like this house," Emma announced. "It feels like home." "It is home," Lila said. "All three of us?" "All three of us." Emma thought about this. "Good. Because I was worried." "Worried about what?" Caleb asked. "That you and Lila would get married and forget about me." Caleb pulled her into his lap. "That's never going to happen." "You know why?" "Why?" "Because Lila's here because of you as much as because of me. We're a package deal." "What's a package deal?" "It means we come together, all three. No forgetting anyone." Emma seemed satisfied with this. She nestled against his chest, her breathing already evening out toward sleep. Lila met Caleb's eyes over Emma's head. "Package deal," she mouthed. He nodded. "Package deal." December came fast. Emma's school had a winter concert where she sang 3 songs off-key and waved enthusiastically every time she spotted them in the audience. Caleb's company had another holiday party, which they attended together this time. No hiding, no anxiety, just 2 people who were tired and wanted to leave early. On Christmas Eve, they drove to visit Lila's parents. Emma had made them both handmade cards, carefully decorated with glitter and stickers. Patricia's house was exactly what Caleb expected. Tastefully decorated, expensive furniture, everything in its place. Emma was terrified to touch anything. "It's okay," Lila whispered to her. "Grandma's house is just fancy. You can sit on the furniture." "Grandma?" Emma whispered back. Lila froze. She hadn't planned to use that word yet. It had just slipped out. Patricia, arranging cookies on a tray, had clearly heard. She looked at Emma, then at Lila, her expression unreadable. "Yes," Patricia said finally. "Grandma, if that's acceptable to everyone." Emma's face lit up. "I get a grandma? You get 2, apparently, and a grandfather." Emma launched herself at Patricia with the force of a small hurricane, nearly knocking the cookie tray over. Patricia caught her, looking stunned and pleased in equal measure. Robert caught Caleb's eye and winked. They stayed for dinner and presents and the comfortable chaos that came with family gatherings. Patricia was warmer than Caleb had ever seen her, asking Emma about school and complimenting her dress, and only making one comment about Caleb's job prospects, which was progress. On the drive home, Emma fell asleep clutching a stuffed bear Robert had given her. Lila reached across the console and took Caleb's hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me this. All of this. I didn't know I wanted it until I had it." "Same here." They drove in comfortable silence, Emma snoring softly in the back seat, the city lights blurring past the windows. January marked a year since Lila had broken up with Trevor. A year since she'd called Caleb on New Year's Eve and started this whole thing. Neither of them mentioned the anniversary, but Caleb thought about it while Emma was at school and Lila was at work. A year ago, he'd been alone, invisible, safe. Now he was seen, vulnerable, terrified half the time, and happier than he'd ever been. That evening, Lila came home with takeout and a bottle of wine and a nervous energy that set off alarm bells. "What's wrong?" Caleb asked. "Nothing's wrong. I just need to talk to you about something." They waited until after dinner, until Emma was occupied with her homework at the kitchen table, before retreating to their bedroom. "So," Lila said, pacing, "I got offered a promotion. That's great. It's in Boston." Caleb's stomach dropped. "Boston?" "The analytics division is expanding. They want me to head the new team. It's a huge opportunity, more money, better title, actual career advancement instead of just lateral moves." "When would you start?" "March, if I take it." "If?" Lila stopped pacing and looked at him. "I'm not taking it." "Lila, I already turned it down. I told them I wasn't interested in relocating." "You can't do that. This is your career. And this is my life. Here, with you and Emma. I'm not leaving." Caleb stood up. "You're making the same mistake you made with Trevor, giving up what you want because someone else needs you to. That's not what this is, isn't it? You're turning down a promotion because you don't want to disrupt Emma's school or my job or whatever other excuse you're telling yourself. But in 5 years, you're going to resent me for it. In 5 years, I'm going to be grateful I chose the people I love over a title on a business card. You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Caleb, I've had the career. I've had the impressive job and the big salary and the path that looked good on paper. And you know what? It was empty. This is real. This matters. So does your future. My future is here, with you, unless you're telling me you don't want that." Caleb sat back down, running his hands through his hair. "I want it, but I don't want you to give up everything to have it. I'm not giving up everything. I'm choosing what matters most. What if we came with you?" Lila stared at him. "What?" "To Boston. What if we moved? Emma could transfer schools. I could find work. We could make it happen. You hate change. I hate the idea of you sacrificing your career for me more than I hate change. Lila sat down next to him. You'd really do that? Uproot Emma, leave your job, move to a city you've never been to? For you? Yeah, I would. She was quiet for a long time. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. It's also the most terrifying thing I've ever said. I know. She took his hand. But I'm not taking the job. Not because I'm sacrificing for you, but because I don't want it. I want this. Our life here, our routine, Emma's school and your apartment and the life we've built. You're sure? Completely. I already called them back and said no. It's done. Caleb pulled her close. Okay, but if you change your mind, I won't. Stop trying to give me an exit strategy. Old habits, new habits, Lila corrected. We trust each other. We build together. We stop assuming the worst. That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Lila's willingness to turn down opportunity after opportunity for him and Emma, about the life they were building that didn't look like anything either of them had planned. Around midnight, he got out of bed and went to the living room. Lila found him there 20 minutes later. Can't sleep? She asked. Just thinking. About? He looked at her, standing in the doorway in one of his old t-shirts, hair messy from sleep, completely at home in a way that still surprised him. Marry me, he said. Lila blinked. What? Marry me. Not eventually, not someday, now, soon, whenever you want. Caleb, I know I don't have a ring. I know this isn't romantic, but I don't want to wait anymore. I want you to be Emma's legal guardian. I want you to be my wife. I want to stop acting like this is temporary when we both know it's not. Lila crossed the room and sat next to him. You're serious. Completely serious. You know my mother is going to lose her mind. Probably. And we'll have to plan a wedding, which is going to be a disaster because neither of us knows how to plan anything. We'll figure it out. And Emma's going to want to be a flower girl and wear something absolutely ridiculous. I'm counting on it. Lila smiled, the real smile, the one that made her whole face light up. Then yes, I'll marry you. Caleb kissed her, and for the first time in his life, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to build. They told Emma the next morning over breakfast. So Lila and I have some news, Caleb started. Emma looked up from her cereal. Are you getting married? Caleb and Lila exchanged glances. How did you know? Lila asked. Because you've been acting weird, and adults only act that kind of weird when something big is happening. We are getting married, Caleb confirmed. How do you feel about that? Emma considered this seriously. Do I get to be in the wedding? Of course. Can I wear a purple dress? Absolutely. Then I feel good about it. She went back to her cereal, then looked up again. Does this mean Lila's my mom now? The question hung in the air. Lila knelt down next to Emma's chair. I'm not trying to replace your first mom. She'll always be your mom even if she's not here. But if you want to call me mom, I would love that. And if you don't want to, that's okay too. Either way, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Emma thought about it. Can I try it and see how it feels? You can do whatever feels right. Okay. Emma took another bite of cereal. Mom. The word was tentative, testing. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Yeah, baby? Can you pass the milk? Sure. Just like that, the world shifted into place. They got married in April, small ceremony, just family and a few close friends. Emma wore a purple dress that was even more ridiculous than anticipated and carried a basket of flower petals that she distributed with military precision. Patricia cried, which surprised everyone. Robert gave a toast about how love was choosing someone every day, not just once. Caleb stood at the altar and watched Lila walk toward him, and for once in his life, he wasn't thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. He was just present, just grateful. When they said their vows, Lila went off script. I wish you were mine, she said, echoing the words she'd spoken on that rooftop over a year ago. And now you are. You and Emma both. And I'm yours, and that's the best decision I've ever made. Caleb's voice was rough when he responded. You asked me once what I wanted. I want this, every day. Even the hard days. Especially the hard days. I want to build a life with you that doesn't look like anyone else's plan but ours." They kissed, and Emma cheered, and the small gathering applauded. Afterward, at the reception in Patricia and Robert's backyard, Caleb found a quiet moment alone with Emma. "You doing okay, kiddo?" "I'm good. This is the best wedding I've ever been to." "It's the only wedding you've ever been to." "Still the best." He pulled her close. "You know things are going to change now, right? Lila's officially your mom. We're a real family." "We were already a real family, Daddy. The wedding just made it official." Out of the mouths of now 6-year-olds. That night, after the guests had left and Emma had fallen asleep in the car on the way home, Caleb carried her inside while Lila unlocked the door. They got her into bed without waking her, then stood in the doorway watching her breathe. "We did it," Lila whispered. "Did what?" "Built something real. Something that's ours." Caleb wrapped an arm around her waist. "It's not perfect." "No, but it's honest, and it's ours. That's better than perfect." They stood there for a while longer, then retreated to their own room, their shared space, their shared life, their shared future. The next morning, Emma woke them up early, bouncing on their bed with the energy of someone who'd had way too much cake the night before. "Get up! It's a family day." "It's Sunday," Caleb groaned. "Family days start at a reasonable hour." "This is a reasonable hour. The sun is up." "The sun has terrible judgment," Lila laughed, pulling Emma down between them. "What do you want to do on family day?" "Everything. Pancakes, park, movie, ice cream, everything." "That's a lot of everything," Caleb said. "We're a family now. We can do everything." And somehow, that logic made perfect sense. They spent the day doing exactly what Emma wanted: pancakes that Caleb burned slightly, a trip to the park where Emma insisted they all go down the slide together, a movie that none of them could agree on, so they saw two, ice cream that dripped everywhere despite their best efforts. It was chaotic and exhausting and perfectly imperfect. That evening, after Emma finally crashed on the couch, Lila and Caleb sat on the floor with their backs against the furniture, too tired to move. "This is our life now," Lila said. "Yep." Constant chaos and melted ice cream, and a 6-year-old who thinks 6 a.m. is sleeping in. "That's the deal." Lila turned to look at him. "I love it. All of it, even the exhausting parts." "Me too." "You're not invisible anymore." Caleb smiled. "No, I'm definitely not invisible." "How does it feel?" He thought about it, really thought about it. A year and a half ago, he would have said terrifying. 6 months ago, he would have said overwhelming. Now? "It feels like living," he said. "Actually living, not just surviving." Lila leaned her head on his shoulder. "Good. Because I plan on living a lot more years with you." "How many years?" "All of them." Emma stirred on the couch, mumbling something about purple bears in her sleep. Caleb reached up and adjusted her blanket without getting up. This was it. This was the life he'd been too scared to want. The family he'd convinced himself he didn't need. The future he'd almost thrown away because other people's opinions felt more important than his own happiness. But he'd chosen differently. They both had. And now they were here, exhausted, sticky from ice cream, surrounded by the beautiful mess of a life fully lived. Caleb looked at Lila, at Emma, at the small apartment full of their combined stuff and shared memories and the million little ways they'd learned to exist together. It wasn't the life anyone had planned for him. It was better.